I love when an anime or a manga introduces an ultra super secret elite squad that completely towers above the regular group of characters in any given series. You would struggle to find an anime or a manga that doesn't utilize this elite squad trope. In Dragon Ball, you have the Ginyu Force, who made quick work of Vegeta, Gohan, and Krillin. In Naruto, you have the Akatsuki. In One Piece, you have CP9. And in Bleach, there are multiple examples of groups like this, like the Royal Guard or the Schutzstaffel. Now, when these groups are introduced, they are usually hyped up to exponential proportions. This is a bit of a double-edged sword as it raises fan expectations to insane heights. The characters who make up an elite squad need to possess great power and be capable of incredible feats. But unfortunately, this doesn't always turn out to be the case, because there are multiple examples within anime where these elite squads haven't lived up to their reputation. I mean, the Ginyu Force is a perfect example of this. Now, this brings us back to Bleach, because man, Bleach does not stop with the elite squads trope. So much so that outside of the Fullbring arc, there's pretty much an elite squad within every major arc of Bleach. If you've been in the fandom for a while, then you'll know that the Bleach fans have a very strong opinion on some of these squads, and whether if they had lived up to the hype or not. In this video, I'm going to be assessing all of the elite squads that have been introduced within Bleach, as I'll be determining whether if these elite groups were disappointments or if they had lived up to fan expectations. Be sure to stick around until the very end of this video, as I'll be talking about everything from the Espada to the Schutzstaffel and then to the Zero Division. So without further delay, here is my complete breakdown and analysis of the elite squads within Bleach. Discover the Undead Collection and be amongst the very first to join us on our journey over at getsuga.com. So the first elite squad that we are introduced to within the story is coincidentally the least controversial to discuss, and this is none other than the captains of the Gotei 13. It's easy to forget that the captains were once an antagonistic force within Bleach that played the role of a major hurdle that Ichigo and the others had to overcome. The captains were depicted as the very peak of Shinigami power, and Kubo did not hold back in how much of a presence that he had given them during the Soul Society arc. The captains would effortlessly emit a massive torrent of spiritual pressure, which could quite literally crush the souls of an opponent. Kinpachi's mere presence could cause his opponents to have premonitions of their own deaths. Shunsui was so untouchable that the fact that he wasn't taking Chad seriously felt like a blessing, and Mayuri's unbridled malice made him nothing short of a nightmare to encounter. The captains, for the time that they were enemies, were the squad to fear, and every single time that one of them was defeated, it would dawn on us that there were still even more monstrous members of the group yet to encounter. And how could we forget the leader of this group of incredibly powerful individuals, Head Captain Yamamoto, who was the biggest monster of them all. I remember reading the Soul Society arc back in the day and wondering when and how they were going to be able to defeat Yamamoto. Their transition from fearsome foes to allies didn't diminish their impact, because every time that the captains make an appearance within the story, it had continued to be a major event. I mean, look at the reception of when the captains had arrived within Hueco Mundo in order to help Ichigo and the others. Among all of the elite groups that are portrayed within Bleach, their initial introduction is unparalleled, and you won't find anyone arguing about the unparalleled threat that the captains posed to Ichigo during his mission to save Rukia. Now, the easy part is done, because things after the Gotei 13 do get a bit more controversial. The Espada are a bit of a touchy subject, because there's a lot of fan contention on whether if they were even a good villain group, or whether if they had lived up to fan expectations. And then there's of course the can of worms that is who is the strongest Espada argument that I know that I'm inevitably going to have to make a video on someday. At the center of this controversy isn't the Espada as a full group, but rather the top 4, or actually the top 5 Espada, because technically there's a 0 ranking Espada, which Kubo decided to retcon at the very last minute just to further complicate matters. I can never forget how absolutely incredible that moment was in chapter 207, where after all of Ichigo's struggles against Ukiura and a seemingly incomprehensible power, Ichigo had finally managed to stab him, or at least that was what he had thought. Ichigo had assumed that he had just successfully landed a blow against the leader of the Espada, and he somewhat begins to celebrate, thinking that defeating Ukiura would guarantee their victory, but the Espada responds by breaking Ichigo's resolve as he reveals his Espada tattoo, which shows us that Ukiura is in fact the 4th 4th ranked Espada, which means that there are 3 Espada who are exponentially more powerful than him. The way that Kubo had utilized this scene within the manga was absolutely genius. It hammers home the incredible gap in power between Ichigo and the elite members of the Espada. Now, when Ulquiorra was revealed as the 4th ranking Espada, it immediately created a burden of expectation that I don't think even Kubo could have met. And how the story plays out following this scene further aggravates this problem, because after Kubo introduces Ulquiorra as the 4th Espada, the 3 Espada who are ranked above him don't really meet our expectations in the same way. This is because Kubo had made Ulquiorra a bit too special for his own good. I suppose this was done so that Ichigo could have an amazing final confrontation with Ulquiorra by introducing concepts like Segunda Etapa, which is a higher level of power above a Espada's Resurrection, and it appears to be a power that is exclusive to Ulquiorra alone. I mean, this power up is so great that it makes Ulquiorra in fact exponentially more powerful than any of the Espada that are ranked above him. So while Kubo goes really hard on the feats that are demonstrated with Ulquiorra, he doesn't really match this with the other top 3 ranking Espada, thus making them feel like they don't really earn their position within the rankings. The problem is that Ulquiorra having a Segunda Etapa completely undermines the weight of the 4th Espada tattoo reveal, because in reality Ulquiorra is way more powerful than just a 4th ranking Espada. This second resurrection even Aizen wasn't aware of, so this does ultimately leave us with a very confusing picture, as we are then introduced to the remaining Espada who frankly fail to match our expectations. You kind of feel sorry for Baragon, Haribel and Stark, as they were put on this incredibly high pedestal, and we had thought that they were going to reach the same standard as Ulquiorra, but ultimately this was a setup for disappointment, because while Haribel and Baragon were definitely powerful, they were nowhere near to the level of power that Ulquiorra had possessed, and it doesn't help that they didn't fight exceptionally powerful opponents during their respective battles. Baragon falling to the team of Soifon, Omaida and Hachi didn't also help his reputation, and while fans may think that Baragon was wasted as a character, I think that Kubo did quite a good job with showcasing his powers. Baragon's ability over senescence is still a top tier power, even considering all of the abilities that are revealed by the end of the series. Baragon's entire clash with Soifon and Hachi had literally nothing to do with them fighting, as they were running away from him for half of the fight, and any time they had attempted to counterattack Baragon, it was typically by employing a long-range strategy. Baragon simply possesses a very broken power, and with him ranking as the 2nd strongest Espada, he was in fact dominating the fight from start to finish, and there was never a point where Baragon was depicted as being overwhelmed or weak. So while understandably Baragon wasn't nuking countries out of existence like Ulquiorra, he was still a massive threat, and I feel that the story did him justice in that regard. So no, I don't think that Baragon was as much of a disappointment as some fans would lead you to believe. Haribel on the other hand had fought Hitsugaya, whose abilities were the perfect counter to her own, and every time that the two had clashed, there was a clear and distinctive gap between their raw power, with Haribel being comfortably stronger than Hitsugaya. But with her powers being countered by Hitsugaya, it was difficult for her to showcase the full extent of her abilities. Things became even more difficult for Haribel when Hitsugaya had started to use Tenso Juren, which had given him a monopoly over all of the water within the atmosphere. Despite Haribel utilizing a limited range of her powers, a team of Hitsugaya, Hiyori and Lisa still weren't able to take her down, and before Aizen had come to deliver his finishing blow, Haribel was pretty much unscathed following the battles that she had taken part in up until that point, so she wasn't really struggling before Aizen had taken her down. So unfortunately, you could say that Haribel was sidelined by Aizen, while the other Espada had the opportunity to showcase all of their power. So in my opinion, I think that she definitely was able to prove that she was worthy of being the 3rd ranking Espada. The fact that she remains as the uncontested ruler of Hueco Mundo despite her kindness is proof of this fact. This now brings us to Stark, the number 1 ranking Espada, and there's not really a lot to be said about him because his distaste for fighting can kind of justify his lackluster performance before he had used his Resurrection. After he begins to get serious, I think that he gives some really cool showings, as he is in fact able to fight on par with Shunsui in his Shikai state, along with Love and Rose. And while Stark's fight was really cool, I do think that he should have had a lot more of a chance to shine. This now brings us to supposedly the top ranking Espada. While it initially may appear to be a clever plot twist to have Yami appear to be the weakest Espada, but then he turns out to be the strongest, I feel like the execution of this plot point was deeply flawed flawed for several reasons. So while Yami is the 0 ranking strongest Espada, throughout the story we've seen him to be very foolish and arrogant. He is portrayed as being overconfident and constantly underestimating his opponents, which leads to massive consequences like losing an arm and nearly being expelled from the Espada. In terms of raw power, I admit Yami is probably the strongest, but he's never really established any feats that prove that he is more powerful than Stark, Baragon, Haribel, or even Ukiura. On the battlefield, Yami lacks any strategy or skill, and while he has a lot of power, he just ends up being another jobber, because his battle against Kinpachi and Byakuya ends up being off-screened anyway. I'm guessing that Kubo had made this last-minute plot twist just so that the captains within Hueco remain busy while everything is going on within fake Karakura Town. Okay, I think I've spent a lot of time talking about the Espada. Let's move on to the next elite group within Bleach, which of course is the 0 Division or Squad 0. Now, where to begin with this group? In their initial showings within the manga, they were pretty much off-screened. We had first heard about the 0 Division as early as chapter 48. They were hyped as being the strongest group of elite Shinigami who are tasked with protecting the Soul King. Shunsui further added to the hype by stating that the 0 Division are stronger than the entirety of the Gotei 13. In the manga, Ichibe is defeated by Yhwach, and Nimaya ends up being caught off guard by Lil Barrow, and then the remaining members of the 0 Division are pretty much off-screened. We barely got to see any feats demonstrated by Kirinji, Kiryu, or Senjumaru, but thankfully the anime adaptation of the 1000-Year Blood War arc fixes all of this. Not only do we get extended fight sequences of the 0 Division battling against the Schutzstaffel, we also get an all-new, never-before-seen Bankai reveal when the 0 Division members sacrifice themselves so that Senjumaru can activate her Bankai. Now, we do learn some important information about power feats when it comes to the Bankai of the 0 Division, as we learned that when a 0 Division member activates their Bankai, it makes the 3 realms of Hueco Mundo, the world of the living, and the Soul Society tremble. And we see this with the activation of Senjumaru's Bankai. This transformation was exclusively created by Kubo for the anime, and he had drawn some storyboards for the anime staff which they had adapted into anime form. The battle between the 0 Division and the Schutzstaffel wasn't just expanded upon, it was entirely rewritten. We got to see the Schutzstaffel members in their holy forms, and we got to see exclusive one-on-one battles that we didn't get to see within the manga. During Senjumaru's battle against Gerard, we learn about her Shikai called Shigarami, and it takes the form of an oversized sewing needle. The anime also showed us Kirinji versus Askin, and during this fight we get to see more of Kirinji's Shikai, and characters like Nimaya also get a chance to shine, as he has a one-on-one battle against Lil Barrow. During this sequence, the anime gives us a much better explanation of how Lil Barrow's X-axis power works, and like I've mentioned earlier, the best addition within Core 2 which really improved the 0 Division was the inclusion of Senjumaru's Bankai. Kubo did a fantastic job of really hyping up the 0 Division, and the anime does a lot to fix the problems within the manga, as we learn that the 0 Division members are so strong that they need to seal their true Zanpakuto behind a ritual because the activation of one of their Bankais shakes all of the 3 realms. This brief explanation helps us to understand why we didn't get to see the 0 Division go all out, because they are that strong, their power threatens the balance of reality. Now, the next elite squad is the Schutzstaffel, and while they did have some very impressive showings within the manga, the anime has already done so much to improve upon this elite squad. The Schutzstaffel are hyped as an overwhelming threat, and for the most part they live up to their reputation. They are pretty much the most powerful elite villain squad within the story. During the extended fight sequence at the end of Core 2, the Schutzstaffel each got their own holy forms. These consisted of uniquely designed wings with halos. Core 2 wrapped up with each of the 0 Division members being trapped within Senjumaru's Bankai. Lil is trapped within a room of 8 mirrors. Gerard is trapped in a room where he is frozen. Pranida appears to be in a room where he is swallowed by black sand. Hashward ends up being engulfed in flames, and Uryu is trapped within a room which has the insignia of the 5-pointed Quincy cross. The anime did so much to change the portrayal of the Schutzstaffel and the 0 Division that it's really hard to see how it's going to line back up with the events of the manga. After Yhwach had casted Ashvalin and he revives the Schutzstaffel, it seemed as though Lil pretty much one-shot it and defeated all of the 0 Division members off screen. Within the manga, the 0 Division failed to live up to their expectations, and on the other hand, the Schutzstaffel didn't really get much screen time because a lot of their final battles against the 0 Division and the Gotei 13 members were rushed. I'm really looking forward to seeing what new additions will be made to the anime, because already so much has been done to improve upon these 2 elite fighting forces of Bleach. Initially, I'd come up with the idea for this video before Core 2 had aired, and I wanted to talk about how Bleach fumbles its elite squads. But with the changes that have been made to the anime, I've had to make a lot of changes to this video. I really think that elite fighting squads are an excellent idea within shonen anime and manga, but as long as they are executed well. The captains of the Gotei 13 always have this incredible aura of importance. When the Espada were introduced, they felt like the antithesis of the Gotei 13 captains, as they appeared to have an unscalable level of power. The Zero Division were hyped as the most strongest individuals within the entire Bleach universe. And then you have the Schutzstaffel, who have insane skills and absolutely broken powers. With each new story arc of Bleach, Kubo introduces us to a cast or group of characters, and within that group there is always somewhat of an elite squad. With the improvements in the anime, it makes me look forward to what Kubo is planning for the Hell arc. What group is he going to introduce to us, and is there an elite squad within that group? There is definitely a lot to look forward to with the future of Bleach, with even more anime editions expected within Core 3 and 4, and with the possible release of an all-new manga continuation via the Hell arc. We've reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about the elite squads within Bleach? Do you agree with my takes on the Gotei 13 captains, the Espada, the Zero Division, and the Schutzstaffel? If there is anything about these elite squads that I have failed to mention, then definitely let me know by leaving a comment. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.